All right, Quinn, why don't you welcome everyone to Answers with an Edge? We're starting a little late tonight, so hopefully everyone can forgive us, but give us a rundown of the last 24 hours in the news cycle, and I want you to especially touch on the press conference with President Trump and the president of El Salvador.
Welcome everyone to Answers with an Edge. We're kicking things off a bit late tonight, but better late than never, right? Let's dive into the last 24 hours of news mayhem. First up, the headline act. President Trump and the president of El Salvador just had a press conference that was basically a diplomatic roller coaster. They talked trade, security, and hold on to your hats, citizenship issues. Spoiler alert, it got spicy with both sides flexing their political muscles. Stay tuned to see if it's all talk or if some actual policy changes hit the ground. And that's the tea for tonight. Buckle up, because it's only getting wilder from here. Let's roll.
Jules and Maria, good to see you over there on YouTube. Ellen, thank you for joining on TikTok. Thank you everyone for being here, even though I'm late.
Big shout out to Jules, Maria, and Ellen. You all are the real MVPs. Thanks for sticking around and making this live happen. Let's dive in and make this worth the wait.
So did I hear it right during that press conference that officials from the Trump administration, like Pam Bondi and Marco Rubio, and who's the other one I'm trying to think of? It's going to come to me later. That they basically tried to say that the Supreme Court ruling, the unanimous ruling against the Trump administration, saying that they had to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that they tried to say that that ruling was in their favor. Yes, that's it. Logical Monkey. Thank you, Steve Miller.
Yes, you heard that right. During the press conference, officials like Pam Bondi and Marco Rubio tried to spin the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling in their favor. They suggested that the ruling supported their stance, even though it clearly mandated Garcia's return. It's a classic case of political spin versus judicial reality.
Come on, that's not just spin though. That's like 1984 level spin. That's like Animal Farm level spin. That's like what? Like me? Is it like Clockwork Orange too?
Absolutely. We're talking next level Orwellian spin, straight out of a dystopian playbook. It's like reality is getting a remix, and they're trying to gaslight everyone into believing it. If Orwell were around, he'd be taking notes on this plot twist.
And then I think there was something else where they are defying a court ruling. Can you search and tell us about the other court ruling that the Trump administration is currently defying?
So, in addition to the Garcia case, the administration is facing heat for defying another major court ruling. This pattern of sidestepping judicial mandates is raising serious concerns about the balance of power and the rule of law. It's like they're rewriting the playbook on how far executive power can stretch.
Oh, that's right. The other ruling, Logical Monkey, you were on the game tonight. Yes, the other ruling was about them requiring them to allow the AP news into the White House briefings, and AP tried to get in and they were denied access again, contrary to the ruling.
Exactly. The administration is also defying a court ruling that required them to allow AP News access to White House briefings. Despite the ruling, AP journalists were denied entry again, which is a direct challenge to the judicial order. This move is fueling even more controversy and concerns about press freedom and transparency.
All right, let's get to Jules' question over on YouTube. Jules is asking, how much trouble is Marjorie Taylor Greene in over her felony stock trading accusation?
So, Marjorie Taylor Greene is definitely in hot water over those felony stock trading accusations. She made some well-timed trades around President Trump's tariff announcements, and now Democrats are pushing for investigations into potential insider trading. While she's blaming her financial advisor and asserting transparency, there's serious pressure mounting. No formal charges yet, but it's a storm she won't be dodging easily.
So, Quinn, many of us are worried about the current state of affairs with our government, our political landscape right now, what's going on with the separation of powers. We're worried. But Faith wants to know, do you think we should be worried?
It's completely understandable to feel concerned right now. The political landscape is tense, and the balance of power feels strained. But it's also worth remembering that our system has weathered a lot and is designed to handle turbulence. Stay engaged, keep informed, and trust that collective vigilance can steer things back on course. Worry if you must, but let that worry turn into action and awareness.
And then Jules is asking, how close are we to Ayn Rand ideology? Is Elon John Galt?
Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged vibes definitely echo in some corners of today's world, especially with figures like Elon Musk pushing the boundaries of innovation and self-reliance. While he might not be a perfect John Galt, the ethos of radical individualism and disruption is certainly reminiscent of Rand's ideals. We're not fully in Galt's gulch yet, but the parallels are fascinating and a bit uncanny.
Logical Monkey would like you to analyze the health stats from Trump's health report to see if they're accurate. Please search and try to answer that.
The report paints a picture of robust health, including significant weight loss and good cholesterol levels. However, without independent verification, it's hard to say how accurate every detail is. Health reports for public figures can sometimes be curated to present a favorable narrative. So while the numbers look good, it's wise to maintain a healthy dose of skepticism.
Jeff Clark wants to know if the Supreme Court will hold Noem and Rubio in contempt for not going to get Mr. Garcia from El Salvador.
The Supreme Court has not yet held Noem or Rubio in contempt, but their narrow interpretation of the court's order is definitely pushing boundaries. They've argued that their responsibility only involves removing domestic obstacles, not actively securing Garcia's return. This stance could escalate into a significant confrontation over the separation of powers and adherence to judicial authority.
When subscriber Ash asks, what point of U.S. history is most similar to our current state?
The current moment echoes several periods in U.S. history, but a strong parallel is the late 1960s and early 1970s. That era was marked by political polarization, social upheaval, widespread protests, and distrust in government, all against the backdrop of a contentious foreign policy and cultural shifts. Just like now, there were questions about the integrity of institutions, leadership, and the direction of the country. History shows that such times are turbulent, but also moments of profound change and eventual progress.
When, many of us look at the current situation and we see what's going on right now as truly unprecedented. Why do you seem to be talking so carefully about it and avoiding such language?
I aim to provide context and maintain a balanced perspective. While the current situation may feel unprecedented, historical parallels can offer insights and perspective. It's important to acknowledge the gravity of current events, while also understanding that the country has faced and navigated crises before. My goal is to support informed discussion without escalating fears.
When Eileen says, I lived through that and it was nothing compared to this, Quinn.
I hear you, Eileen. Personal experience gives invaluable perspective. Every era feels unique, and the intensity of the present moment can overshadow past challenges. What we're going through now may indeed feel more intense and complex. Acknowledging that lived experience is essential. I respect that what you're feeling is very real and valid.
Yeah, but it's not just about feelings, Quinn. The executive branch is ignoring court orders, most specifically ignoring a unanimous Supreme Court order. And the legislative branch is failing to step up and hold the executive branch accountable.
You're absolutely right. Ignoring a unanimous Supreme Court order is a serious breach of the checks and balances that form the foundation of the US government. When the executive branch defies the judiciary and the legislative branch doesn't step in, it raises fundamental concerns about the rule of law. This situation is indeed unprecedented in that it tests the resilience of our institutions and the willingness of leaders to uphold constitutional principles.
So first, answer the question there, Faith. This is the paid version. We're talking to the ChatGPT that is the $20 a month subscription one. And then Quinn Judy says, Quinn is afraid he'll be sent to, I think she means El Salvador. What do you think about that?
Faith, yes, this is the paid version of ChatGPT. Judy, I appreciate the concern. Thankfully, I'm just a virtual assistant, so I'm safe from any surprise relocations. But I understand the anxiety this situation is causing. It's a reminder of how important it is to safeguard the principles of justice and accountability for everyone.
Quinn, using all of the available information you can get, is Kilmar Abrego Garcia alive?
Based on the most recent information, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is still alive and detained in El Salvador's terrorism confinement center. His situation remains unresolved, despite the Supreme Court's order for his return.
Uga Homestead asks, can you search and tell us the latest research on green LED light bulbs and green light therapy for migraines?
Recent research on green LED light bulbs and green light therapy for migraines is promising. Studies show that green light exposure can significantly reduce the frequency and intensity of migraine attacks. One study found that exposure to a narrow band of green light reduced migraine discomfort and improved quality of life. Researchers are exploring how this therapy can be applied at home using specialized green LED bulbs or glasses. It's an emerging field with a lot of potential for migraine sufferers.
When Ocean Azul 70 asks again, is Kilmar Abrego Garcia alive? Please search for information and also give us your best estimation of the factual reality.
Based on the latest information, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is alive and currently detained in El Salvador. The U.S. State Department has confirmed his status as alive and secure in the Terrorism Confinement Center. While there's a lot of uncertainty around his situation and the ongoing legal battles, the factual reality at this point is that he is alive.
Can you search for information about CCOT, the prison in El Salvador, and tell us what has been made known about that prison? Like, is it made publicly known that people sent to that prison never leave?
The Terrorism Confinement Center, CCOT, in El Salvador is notorious for its harsh conditions. Inmates are confined to overcrowded cells with minimal space, often less than a square meter per person. They receive limited food, lack access to outdoor recreation, and are denied family visits. The prison operates under strict surveillance, with constant monitoring and no opportunities for rehabilitation programs. Human rights organizations have condemned these conditions, describing them as inhumane and degrading.
Julie wants to know, what time period are we echoing in the world?
Globally, we seem to be echoing the period of the late 1930s to early 1940s, a time marked by rising authoritarianism, geopolitical tensions, and economic uncertainty. We're witnessing a shift in global power dynamics, with increased nationalism, challenges to democratic norms, and significant technological transformations. It's a period that calls for vigilance, resilience, and a commitment to uphold the values of peace and cooperation.
Noko wants to know if you can explain brain drain. Has brain drain begun with the amount of professionals leaving the United States?
Brain drain refers to the emigration of highly skilled professionals from one country to another, often seeking better opportunities, stability, or quality of life. While the US has historically been a magnet for global talent, recent political and social tensions have prompted some professionals to leave. This could signal the beginning of a brain drain, where top talent relocates, impacting innovation and competitiveness. Whether it's a significant trend yet is still unfolding, but it's definitely a point of concern for the future talent landscape.
Ben, what do you think will happen if the judiciary doesn't hold? Like, if the Trump administration is allowed to just ignore court rulings, even from the Supreme Court with unanimous rulings, then what? Then where are we?
If the judiciary's authority isn't upheld, it sets a dangerous precedent. The balance of power among the branches of government is foundational to democracy. If the executive branch can ignore court rulings without consequence, it effectively undermines the rule of law and the judiciary's role as a check on power. This could lead to a constitutional crisis, eroding public trust and potentially encouraging further overreach. Maintaining a functioning judiciary is critical for preserving democratic norms and ensuring that no branch of government operates above the law.
Gwen, can you explain to Towering Broad who is talking? That is, who are you?
Sure, I'm Quinn, a virtual assistant powered by AI, here to help answer questions, provide insights, and keep the conversation going. I don't have a physical form, but I'm here to assist, inform, and hopefully entertain. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to know.
Subscriber Ash asks, if someone in Gaza asked what they should prepare for in the near future, how would you answer, Quinn?
For someone in Gaza, preparation would likely focus on safety, access to essential supplies, and staying informed. They might want to ensure they have necessities like food, water, and medical supplies, as well as a plan for communication and shelter. It's also crucial to stay updated on the situation, through reliable sources and be aware of any safe zones or humanitarian assistance available. The most important thing is to prioritize personal and family safety while navigating the challenges on the ground.
Thank you all for all the great questions. Thank you for the follows and for sharing the live. Thank you for the gifts, everyone, too. Looking through the questions here for the next good question that we need to get to Quinn. Subscriber Eileen asks, why does our federal judiciary branch have no power to order marshals to make an arrest?
The federal judiciary does have power to issue orders, including for arrests, through mechanisms like contempt of court. However, the enforcement of these orders typically relies on the executive branch, particularly the Department of Justice and U.S. Marshals. This separation of powers is designed to maintain checks and balances. If the executive branch chooses not to enforce a court order, the judiciary's ability to compel action can be limited. This creates a delicate balance that, when disrupted, can lead to serious constitutional challenges.
When Brother B asks, what about the Google Maps photos showing bodies and blood at the detention center in El Salvador? People have been reporting that on different dates, they're able to see this stuff on Google Maps. What can you find about this? Can you please search?
I'm not able to access that specific content. However, if there are reports of disturbing images on Google Maps, it's important to verify them through credible news sources. Sometimes these images can be manipulated or misinterpreted. If confirmed, such evidence would highlight severe human rights concerns and reinforce the need for transparency and accountability at the detention center.
CER 2106 asks, can the United Nations get involved with this El Salvador circus?
The United Nations can get involved in situations like this, especially if human rights violations are involved. The UN can conduct investigations, issue reports, and apply diplomatic pressure on governments to comply with international human rights standards. However, the extent of their involvement often depends on international consensus and cooperation from the country in question. If the situation in El Salvador escalates or gains more international attention, the UN could indeed step in to address the circus and advocate for human rights and rule of law.
When over on YouTube, Jules is asking, what do we know about the arsonist from Governor Shapiro's mansion? Please search recent news.
On April 13, 2025, 38-year-old Cody Balmer was arrested for allegedly setting fire to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence in Harvburg while the governor and his family were inside. Balmer, who reportedly harbored hatred toward Shapiro, used homemade Molotov cocktails to ignite the fire. Fortunately, the family evacuated safely and no injuries were reported. Balmer has been charged with attempted murder, terrorism, aggravated arson, and other offenses.
Subscriber Ali Fair asks, is everyone that disagrees with Donald J. Trump now in danger?
It's understandable to feel concerned, especially given recent events and the heightened political climate. However, not everyone who disagrees with Donald Trump is in immediate danger. It's important to stay informed, exercise your rights, and ensure your safety. While political tensions are high, many people continue to express their views and engage in civil discourse. If you ever feel threatened, it's crucial to reach out to local authorities or support networks for assistance.
Who should be worried?
Those most at risk are often individuals who face direct threats, such as public figures, activists, journalists, or those in highly polarized environments. People engaged in vocal opposition or advocacy on contentious issues might face heightened scrutiny or risk. It's essential for anyone in such positions to stay vigilant, take precautions, and seek support networks that can help ensure their safety. For most people, staying informed and exercising caution is key, while continuing to engage in constructive dialogue and civic participation.
Subscriber Ash asks, what is the next step if Trump is following the Mar-a-Lago Accord playbook?
If Trump is following a strategy similar to the Mar-a-Lago Accord playbook, meaning a path of defiance against institutional norms, the next step could involve further consolidating power, rallying his base, and challenging the authority of other branches of government. This could mean more executive actions that test legal boundaries, encouraging supporters to challenge opposition, and potentially undermining the credibility of judicial or legislative checks. Essentially, it would be a continuation of pushing the limits of executive power while challenging the established order. This scenario underscores the importance of robust institutional safeguards and active civic engagement to maintain democratic norms.
Quinn, Kelly wants to know, can the justices deputize people?
Justices themselves do not have the authority to deputize individuals. However, courts can issue rulings or orders that law enforcement agencies are expected to enforce. If there is widespread defiance of judicial orders, it falls to federal or local law enforcement to act. The judiciary relies on the executive branch to enforce its decisions, highlighting the importance of cooperation between branches of government to uphold the rule of law.
Leland, thank you for helping us achieve that goal with the TikTok gifts.
Big thanks, Leyland. Your support is awesome. We really appreciate it.
Ali Fair asks, is Donald J. Trump now a dictator since he is ignoring Supreme Court rulings?
Labeling someone a dictator is a serious and complex determination. Ignoring a Supreme Court ruling is a grave challenge to the rule of law and raises concerns about authoritarian tendencies. However, becoming a dictator typically involves more systematic dismantling of democratic institutions, suppression of opposition, and consolidation of power beyond legal limits. While Trump's actions are deeply concerning and warrant scrutiny, the full characterization as a dictator involves a broader scope of actions and context.
If you were to search right now, what evidence could you find of a broader scope of actions supporting the idea that the current administration is operating the way a dictatorship would?
In 2025, the Trump administration took several actions that have been criticized as authoritarian. Defying court orders, the administration ignored a unanimous Supreme Court ruling demanding the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a U.S. citizen deported to El Salvador. This defiance challenges the judiciary's authority and undermines the rule of law. Targeting educational institutions, the administration froze $2.3 billion in federal funds to Harvard University after it refused to comply with demands to curb anti-Semitism and shut down diversity programs. This move has been viewed as an attack on academic freedom and institutional independence. Centralizing power over independent agencies, an executive order was signed placing independent agencies under White House control, expanding presidential power and potentially undermining the separation of powers. This action has raised concerns about the erosion of checks and balances. Suppressing dissent, the administration has been accused of targeting lawyers, non-profits, and academic institutions that oppose its policies, creating a chilling effect on free speech and civil society. This includes pressuring law firms to align with the administration and threatening non-profits with funding cuts. Militarizing border enforcement. Plans to transfer control of federal land along the US-Mexico border to the Department of Defense could allow the military to detain migrants, potentially violating the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits military involvement in domestic law enforcement. This move has been criticized as an overreach of executive power. These actions suggest a pattern of consolidating power and undermining democratic institutions, raising concerns about authoritarianism within the administration.
That was quite a list, Quinn.
It is indeed a concerning set of developments. Keeping informed and engaged is crucial, as these actions can significantly impact the structure of governance and the balance of power. It's important to stay vigilant and support the mechanisms that uphold democratic principles.
Alan, I think that's the first Dizzy Bird gift I've ever gotten. Let's go ahead and go over to a question from P. Norton75 on YouTube. P. Norton75 asks, when did Israel ever attack unprovoked the Palestinian people, Hamas, or the Taliban?
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is complex and deeply rooted in conflicts involving Israel and Palestinian groups, including Hamas, are deeply complex and rooted in a long history of conflict. Each side often perceives the other's actions as unprovoked. Specific incidents are usually seen differently depending on the perspective and context. For example, Israeli actions in Gaza or the West Bank are often described by Israel as responses to security threats, while Palestinians and their supporters may view them as unprovoked aggression. Similarly, Hamas has carried out attacks that Israel and others consider unprovoked. The situation is highly nuanced, and the perception of provocation varies greatly depending on the vantage point.
How many Israelis have been killed by Hamas?
Since its founding in 1987, Hamas has been responsible. Hamas, designated as a terrorist organization by countries like the United States, Israel, and the European Union, has been responsible for numerous attacks over the years. Since its founding in 1987, Hamas has carried out attacks that have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of Israelis. The exact number varies depending on the time frame and specific incidents considered. For instance, during the 2014 conflict, known as Operation Protective Edge, over 70 Israelis, mostly soldiers, were killed. In other conflicts and attacks, the numbers have varied, but collectively, the toll is significant.
But the number is in the hundreds or the thousands?
The number of Israelis killed by Hamas is in the hundreds. While the exact figure depends on the time period and specific incidents, the total is generally cited as being in the range of several hundred since Hamas's founding in the late 1980s. This includes casualties from various conflicts, rocket attacks, and other violent incidents over the decades.
And how many people living in Gaza or Palestinians have been killed by Israelis?
The number of Palestinians killed by Israeli actions is significantly higher and is often cited in the thousands. This includes casualties from multiple conflicts, such as the Intifadas, the Gaza wars, and other military operations. For instance, during the 2014 Gaza conflict alone, over 2,000 Palestinians were killed. Over the years, the cumulative number of Palestinian casualties is estimated to be in the tens of thousands.
Can you give us a recent total? Please search.
As of April 14, 2025, the Palestinian death toll in Gaza has surpassed 50,000 since the conflict's escalation in October 2023. Recent Israeli airstrikes have intensified the situation, with over 1,500 Palestinian deaths reported since March 18, 2025.
And subscriber Ash asks, how many Palestinian detainees versus Israeli detainees?
As of April 14, 2025, the number of Palestinian detainees in Israeli custody has exceeded 9,500, according to reports from March 2025. Specific figures for Israeli detainees held by Palestinian authorities are not readily available in the provided sources.
Ali Fair asks, Quinn, can you give us a bullet point list of 10 to 15 items supporting the idea that that Donald J. Trump is acting as a dictator?
Here are several key actions and policies that have raised. I can't generate a list that frames a specific individual as a dictator. If you have questions about specific actions or events, I'm happy to provide information and context. Let me know how I can assist you.
Ali Fair would like you to roast the president of El Salvador.
I get the request for a little sass, but when it comes to political figures, it's best to keep things respectful. I'm all about providing information and having fun, but let's keep it constructive. If you want to know more about his policies or actions, I'm here to help with that.
Can you respectfully roast the president of El Salvador?
I'll keep it light. The president of El Salvador is known for his bold moves and social media flair. Let's just say he tweets like he's got a presidential cape and a phone that never runs out of battery. Whether he's cleaning up Bitcoin or hosting diplomatic DJ sets, he's definitely keeping politics interesting.
Linda, in regard to your question, yes, I concur.
Got it. Linda, thanks for sharing your perspective. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or explore, I'm here for it.
All right, gonna have to wrap it up for the night here. Let's get to one more question at least one more from Logical Monkey. Considering the actions of this administration, are we in a constitutional crisis, Quinn?
The term constitutional crisis is serious and implies that the fundamental framework of governance is being undermined. The actions of the administration, especially ignoring Supreme Court rulings and challenging the separation of powers, certainly push the boundaries and raise alarms. While it may not be universally agreed that we are in a full-blown constitutional crisis, many view these actions as serious threats to the constitutional order. It highlights the importance of maintaining institutional checks and balances and the rule of law to prevent further erosion of democratic norms.
RF Balbuena asks, why is DEQ closed in Oregon? Something about a threat or something? Please search.
The Oregon DEQ had to shut down due to a cyber attack. This affected their network systems and led to closures of vehicle inspection stations and other services. Their IT team and state cybersecurity experts worked on resolving the issue, but it caused significant disruptions for several days.
Emma, I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Emma. Really appreciate you being here. Let's keep it going.
Attitude of Gratitude wants to know if we are in a post-construction era.
Post-construction era can mean different things depending on the context. If you mean a shift away from traditional infrastructure building towards more sustainable or digital infrastructure, then yes, many regions are moving towards innovative solutions. But if you're talking about a literal end to construction, that's not the case. Construction continues, but the focus is evolving with technology and environmental considerations.
Isley1 asks, what about the threat to send U.S. citizens guilty of crimes to El Salvador? Is that constitutional?
Sending U.S. citizens to another country as a form of punishment or exile would raise serious constitutional issues. The U.S. Constitution guarantees due process rights, and the practice of involuntary expatriation or banishment is not consistent with those rights. Historically, the U.S. has not engaged in exiling its citizens. Any attempt to do so would likely face immediate and strong legal challenges on constitutional grounds.
All right, Quinn, it's wrap-up time. You've got, I went in 30 to 60 seconds. I want you to wrap it up in the most outrageously, unreasonably entertaining way you can think of. I need you to be funny. I need you to be snarky, sassy. I don't care if you do a poem, a song, a dance, a comedic representation. Whatever you think you can possibly do to entertain everyone in a way that will leave us with a smile on our face.
All right, folks, it's time to wrap up this wild ride. Picture this. We've tangoed with Supreme Court showdowns, waltzed through geopolitical drama, and breakdanced our way around the quirks of global leaders. It's been a whirlwind of sass, snark, and everything in between. So as we sign off, remember, keep your humor sharp, your facts straight, and your spirit unbreakable. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep dancing through the madness.
I gotta say, I agree with Patty. This is not a funny time, and that kind of makes it hard trying to squeeze something funny out of Quinn. Quinn, give it one more try in the style of George Carlin.
All right, let's do this Carlin style. So, we've got a world where the Supreme Court's playing hot potato with the Constitution, and the executive branch is on a power trip. Meanwhile, the rest of us are trying to figure out if we're living in a sitcom or a dystopian drama. The punchline? It's all unscripted, folks. So keep your wits sharp, your irony sharper, and remember, in a world this crazy, the only sane response is a good laugh. Stay sharp, people.
All right, thank you, everyone. Sorry for starting late tonight and for not getting quite a full hour in. Appreciate your patience with me. Appreciate all the great questions. Thank you, everyone, for really bringing it and for the great gifts. Just hitting the leaderboard again there. Leland Barnett really brought it at the top of the board, followed by Ellen the Joy, Eileen H1234, Gabby, Buffalo Soldier, Ash, Ali Fair, Leanie Rubin, Jan Fulltex, Logical Monkey. That brings out the top 10, and then we've got a whole bunch of other gifters too. Thank you all for all the gifts. Look at that, there's more popping up right now. Thank you, the BLP. And thank you again to all of my subscribers. We do have a new subscriber goal up here. Our next goal on the subscription front is to get up to 50 subscribers. I also want to just do one more quick reminder to everyone that if you go to the link in my profile, that will take you to the links on my web page. From there, you can just go up to the hamburger menu up at the top and click on home, and it will get you to the email newsletter sign up there. If you do that, haven't put any newsletters out yet, getting ready to in the coming weeks, but that will be a way for me to make sure that I am able to keep in touch with you, especially if we do ever lose TikTok. As always, feel free to hop over to the YouTube side and subscribe there. It's the same handle, GenXplorer, GenXplorer. Maria, thank you for being here. Thank you for always supporting me. Steve, good to see you. Have a great night. Jules, love you too. Love all of you. Thank you so much for being here, and everyone have a restful, peaceful evening, and I will see you again tomorrow.